is all her voice. This is the word from which thy burning shame.
Good morning. We're reading in Book 10, the book of the double Twilight, Canto 2, the Gospel of Death and the Vanity of the Ideal. And we've come to page 616 at line 345. So Savitri is following Satyavan and the god Death into his realm of darkness. They've gone already deep down into the void, and there came a morning twilight, a world that was very close to the inconscient darkness, but there was light and there was forms and a world, but they were all very evanescent. They were all fleeting forms that just came into appearance for a moment and then disappeared again. And then the debate with Death continued between Savitri and the god Death. And he was saying, look around you, this is the origin of the world of earth where you live, and this is the origin of your ideals and your love and all these things. Nothing lasts. Everything passes again into the void from which it arose. Hope not to build an ideal world on earth. It's not possible. Everything returns into the dust from which it came. And so this argument continues. He has argued about the nature of love, human love, arising out of the instincts, and something also passing, certainly not eternal as Savitri claims. But she, on the other hand, has argued that all originates from God, that God has not built this world in vain, just for a passing show, for a passing moment's delight, that there is something true and real in it as it comes from God, from the eternal, from the infinite. And her love also comes from the divine and not from these instincts of her body. So let's continue their argument. Death is now speaking and is telling how all arises out of this void, and that will return into it. So, shall we start here, Naren?
All by death's mercy breathe and live a while. All think and act by the inconscient's grace. Addict of the resuate luxury of thy thoughts, turn not thy gaze within thyself to look. at visions in the gleaming crystal mind. Close not thy lids to dream the forms of gods. At last to open thy eyes, consent and see the stuff of which thou and the world are made. Inconscient in the dumb, inconscient void, inexplicably a moving world sprang forth. A while secure, happily insensible, it could not rest content with its own truth. For something on its nascent breast was born, condemned to see and know, to feel and love. Its words, its acts, imagined a soul within. It groped for truth and dreamed of self and God. When all unconscious was, then all was well. I, death, was king and kept my regal state, designing my unwilled, unerring plan, creating with a calm, insentient heart.
Thank you. Let's pause there. So death is giving his version of reality, of how all has come forth out of the void. He tells Savitri, stop imagining all these things about God and love and ideals of truth. These are just visions occurring in your mind. Look around you, see how all these forms around you dissolve. Nothing lasts. You think your dreams are going to last? Your visions? He says that all has arisen out of the inconscient void. Inexplicably, a moving world sprang forth. A while secure, happily insensible. So at first it was just this physical, material matter universe. All was insensible. There was no mind there, no feeling. Then all was content. All was good. All was fine. There was no dissatisfaction, no pain, no suffering. But then something, mind, I guess, arose in this inconscient matter, condemned to see and know, to feel and love. It watched its acts, imagined a soul within. It groped for truth and dreamed of self and God. So some form of mind arose in the inconscient matter in life, and then began imagining all these things, perhaps looking for a way to appease its suffering and pain in the world, looked for a life beyond this ephemeral, passing life, something eternal to which it would turn after death. So he says, I have created this. I was king. I was Lord of this world, designing my unwilled, unerring plan. This is also kind of a view of material science, that all of this that we see around us is unwilled. There's no purpose behind it. It's just something that has arisen by chance out of the inconscient. And yet it's unerring. It follows some regular patterns of unfoldment. But nothing is really pre-planned, predestined. It just happens.
Unconscious was that all was well. I think that is something which we are facing very much. It's a psychological experience, no? What we have. That as long as we are unconscious, it's all fine, no? And then we become conscious, it can become more difficult. You know?
Yeah, there was something else I was reading related to that in another part of Savitri. I mean, the life of plants and animals are very natural, very kind of easy. They just follow their instincts, but they don't suffer in the way that human beings suffer, because we look at the world and try to understand, realize how difficult things are. We imagine also all kinds of terrible possibilities that may ensue. We look back upon things that have happened and think how it could have been different. We regret what we've done. So when mind arises in the inconscient or the half-conscious world, plant and animal, a lot of suffering comes with it. And so I think, death is kind of referring to this kind of fact of our existence. And perhaps the more conscious we become, as human beings, become more conscious, for example, of just all the pain and suffering that happens in the world around us. We turn on the news and see the terrible suffering that's happening on the other side of the planet. But others may just be involved in their daily life and are oblivious to all of these things that are occurring. So they don't have to kind of share in that pain and suffering.
Part of pain, it would have been better. It's also part of pain.
Yeah.
It would have been better than better, and so it is also painful.
Yeah, we can imagine all different possibilities of how things could be. Okay, let's continue. Sudanya. Line 365.
In my sovereign power of unreality, of realizing nothingness to take a form, infallibly my blind, unthinking force, making by chance a fixity like fates, by whim the formulas of necessity, founded on the hollow ground of the inane, the sheer bizarre of nature's scheme. I carved the vacant either into a space, a huge expanding and contracting breath, hovered the fires of the universe. I struck out the supreme original spark and spread its pulses ranked almies through the inane, manufactured the stars from the occult radiances, marshaled the platoons of the invisible dance. I formed Earth's beauty out of atoms and gas, and built from chemic plasm the living man.
Thank you. Let's pause. Again, here Sri Aurobindo beautifully describes the scientific view of the origin of the universe, of existence. He brings in some of the findings of astronomy and physics. I struck out the supreme original spark. Seems to be referring to the Big Bang, and spread its sparse ranked armies through the inane. So it spread out all of the material hidden in this original huge black hole in which all matter, all time and space was collapsed, and from which it began, spread out, exploded into the inane, into the vast nothingness around it, creating space and time, matter, the galaxies and stars. Yeah. Mm. I think so. Mm. Yeah, I mean, originally, in the physical explanation, there was, just very simple atomic forms or energy. I think even there weren't perhaps particles in the beginning, maybe just some kind of energy. So he could be referring to that, but he might also be referring to some kind of occult explanation of things arising out of immaterial energy. Even in his own explanation, matter arises out of subtle physical forms. And subtle physical forms, not material, but subtle physical, arise out of something more refined, ethereal, out of mind, and then eventually out of spirit. I don't know that death would be arguing in such a way, but
This was interesting. In 372, I curved the vacant ether into space using curve.
well, I think the physicists or astronomers also believe that space is curved, I think. Originally, if it exploded out of some center, everything would be thrown out from that and it would be kind of a sphere. Platoons, he's using a metaphor of to the military troops who are arranged in formations or in groups. And then the last lines are interesting. I formed earth's beauty out of atom and gas, and built from chemic plasm the living man. So all these things that we see, this beauty and all the creations of humanity, all its wonders of mind, originally they have this atomic origin. They all come out of atoms and gas. So we could continue.
Then thought came in and spoiled the harmonious world. Matter began to hope and think and feel. Tissue and nerve bore joy and agony. The inconscient cosmos strove to learn its task. An ignorant personal God was born in mind, and to understand, invented reason's law. The impersonal vast strode back to man's desire. A trouble rocked the great world's blind, still heart, and nature lost her wide, immortal calm. Thus came this warped, incomprehensible scene of souls enmeshed in life's delight and pain, and matter's sleep and mind's mortality, of beings in nature's prison waiting death, and consciousness left in, seeking ignorance and evolution's slow arrested plan.
Thank you. Let's pause. So we see how things change when thought, when the mind comes in, whereas everything was unfolding quite naturally and without feeling, without pain, without hope or regret or wishful thinking. Then all this joy and agony comes into the picture of the world. And the riddle of this universe, before there was no question, no questioning mind to wonder about it all. But now we look and wonder, why is it the way it is, and why are we caught in this net of suffering and pain and joy only to die? to return back into the material from which we've come. To learn its task. Yeah. Yeah, somehow there's this activity that goes on, but he's still, I think, arguing that it's not a purposeful activity, but mind perhaps brings in these ideas of a task, of a work to be done. It brings in the idea of a personal God who has created all of this, who has created us, who loves us, who grants us our prayers, our hopes, our dreams. And our consciousness, half lit, half knowing, mostly unknowing, still not understanding why it all is, but groping, trying to understand, trying to find the answers to this riddle of our existence. And it's a very slow unfolding, a very slow growth of knowledge that occurs through the centuries. Our science tries to piece together some picture of the world in which we live and our existence and its purpose. But this unfolding of consciousness, this growth of consciousness in the world is very slow. We won't find the answers anytime soon. Okay, let's continue. Would you like to read?
This is the world in which thou movest astray in the tangled pathways of the human mind, in the issueless circling of thy human life, searching for thy soul and thinking God is here. But where is room for soul or place for God is the brute immensity of a machine, a transient breath thou takest for thy soul, born from a gas, a plasm, a sperm, a gene, a magnified image of man's mind for God, a shadow of thyself thrown upon space, interposed between the upper and nether void. Thy consciousness reflects the world around in the distorting mirror of ignorance, or upwards turns to catch imagined stars, or if a half-truth is playing with the earth, throwing its light on a dark, shadowy ground, it touches only and leaves a luminous smudge.
Thank you. Let's pause there. These first lines are poignant in their description of our life moving astray in the tangled pathways of the human mind, in the issueless circling of thy human life, searching for thy soul and thinking God is here. Our mind creates all of these complications, all of these many branching paths of possibility, of different directions in which we can go in our life. And so we're all kind of like a teeming group of ants going this way and that way, circling around, moving in all directions, and trying to create some kind of order and understanding out of all of that. It's kind of just a tangled chaos of ideas in which we move. And our lives just seem to keep going round in circles without any issue. And searching for our souls and thinking God is here. In all of this chaos, we imagine there is some unifying principle, something that, some true direction for ourselves, some true place in this world, some true role that we have, and that God is there and will help us find it. But he says this is all imagination. Where is room for soul or place for God in the brute immensity of a machine? When we look at nature, it seems to be following all these mechanical, rigid laws. Where is there freedom of soul or freedom of creation? Everything follows its nature. Everything has been ordained by its origins in inconscient matter. Matter follows its physical laws. The life follows its laws. Our minds, our emotions follow their own patterns. Where is the freedom? It's all a machine of nature. You think it's not a machine, then you try changing that. Do away with those laws of your physical nature that are going to return again into material form, energy. The laws of your life that is transient. The laws of your mind that run in patterns of reason, which you've invented, this thought. but can you comprehend the mysteries of your existence? This God is a magnified image of man's mind, a shadow of thyself thrown upon space. What is our idea of God? Some kind of supermind, some magnified image of our own mind. That is interposed between the upper and nether void. This is almost Sri Aurobindo's view, no? There is this supermind between the void of spirit and the void of the inconscient, creating all of this. But Death is saying, this is just a magnified image of your own mind that you throw upon the void. Thy consciousness reflects the world around in the distorting mirror of ignorance. Or upwards, turns to catch imagined stars. Or, if there is a half-truth playing with the earth, throwing its light on a dark, shadowy ground, it touches only and leaves a luminous smudge. If there is some greater knowledge, here reflected in the ignorance of earthly life, it's just a gross distortion. It just leaves a luminous smudge here. You're never getting at any true light, true wisdom, true knowledge here on earth. Everything is deformed, deflected by earth's ignorance. Let's continue. B.
Immortality thou claimest for thy spirit, but immortality for imperfect man, a God who hurts himself at every step, would be a cycle of eternal pain. Wisdom and love thou claimest as thy right, but knowledge in this world is error's mate. A brilliant procuress of nations, and human love, a posturer on earth's stage, who imitates with verve a fairy dance. An extract pressed from hard experience, man's knowledge casked in barrels of memory has the harsh savor of a mortal draught, a sweet secretion from erotic glands, flattering and torturing the burning nerves.
Love is a honey and poison in the breast, drunk by it as the nectar of the gods.
Thank you. Let's pause. Sri Aurobindo beautifully brings in this irony and sarcasm into this view that death is espousing here. You want immortality or claim immortality, but for suffering humanity, it would just be an eternal pain. Why do you want to be immortal? I will give you peace and rest from this difficult, painful life you lead. And wisdom and love thou claimest as thy right. But knowledge in this world is error's mate. All our knowledge is tinged with error, with mistakes. We have no true knowledge of anything. Even our scientific discoveries and laws all change, all last a while and then have to be revised as new knowledge comes. Nothing is sure, nothing is clear. Knowledge and ignorance always go together here on earth. And human love, a posture on the earth stage. It's like we play games, play this drama of love. Imitate something some kind of ideal that we imagine with our mind. But love is not that. It comes also from the baser instincts, a sweet secretion from the erotic glands, flattering and torturing the burning nerves. Love is a honey and poison in the breast, drunk by it as the nectar of the gods. We drink it, we imagine it to be the nectar of the gods, but actually it's mingled with this poison that gives us pain and suffering. Or he's talking of what? I guess in the breast it seems to be referring. Our hearts, yearn for this love and think it's so wonderful. But then when we drink it, we find out some of its darker tastes. And he says something interesting about knowledge. An extract pressed from hard experience, man's knowledge casked in the barrels of memory has the harsh savor of a mortal draught. So it comes from our hard experiences in life. We remember it, we store it in our memory like beer or wine in barrels. And then with age, has this harsh savor of a mortal draught.
This is the old wine terms.
Okay, we'll continue. Okay.
Earth's human wisdom is no great proud power, and love no gleaming angel from the skies. If they aspire beyond earth's dullard air, arriving sunwards with frail waxen wings, how high could reach that forced unnatural flight? But not on earth can divine wisdom reign, and not on earth can divine love be found. Heaven-born, only in heaven can they live, or else there too, perhaps, they are shining dreams. Nay, is it not all thou art, and doest a dream? Thy mind and life are tricks of matter's force. If thy mind seems to thee a radiant sun, if thy life runs a swift and glorious stream, this is the illusion of thy mortal heart, dazzled by a ray of happiness or light, impotent to live by their own right divine, convinced of their brilliant unreality. When their supporting ground is cut away, these children of matter into matter die. Even matter vanishes into energies vague, and energy is a motion of old naught.
Thank you. Let's pause. So again, death is disparaging human knowledge, human wisdom, and human love. If they do aspire beyond this kind of limited mortal form that it takes, if they strive for something more ideal, yet how high can they fly with their frail waxen wings? These wings like wax that would melt as it approaches the sun of truth. How high could reach that forced, unnatural flight? So then he says, not on earth can divine wisdom reign, and not on earth can divine love be found. Heaven born, only in heaven can they live. Or else there too, perhaps they are shining dreams. So sometimes he gives in to this idea that, oh, maybe there is something beyond some heaven where there are these realities. Even so, these things cannot live here on earth, cannot be translated here into earthly life. Here in matter's world, all crumbles back into matter. These things cannot live here. Everything is deformed, degraded here in matter's world. But he says, yeah, even there in heaven, perhaps these things are not real. They're only shining dreams. And then he says, well, is not all thou art and doest a dream? Thy mind and life are tricks of matter's force. We think all of these beautiful things, but they're only some vibration, some movement of electrons, of material energy, stimulating the cells in your brain. They're tricks of matter's force. If it seems beautiful, glorious, It's an illusion of your mortal heart, dazzled by a ray of happiness or light. And proof of this is that they are impotent to live by their own right divine. They can't not live in that eternal truth that you're imagining. In the end, convinced of their brilliant unreality, when their supporting ground is cut away, these children of matter into matter die.
Fly to the sun, and the wax got melted by the heat, and then he crashed to death. So he pulls up these things to emphasize this point.
So that's Icarus?
Icarus.
Icarus.
Yeah.
Greek, not Roman.
The Greek, the first Greek and then Roman. Ovid in the Metamorphoses, I think he put this whole poem in. And then many artists have drawn these pictures. There's a picture of Icarus falling in a couple of modern artists also. It's an old theme. Don't try to fly too high, though.
Okay, we continue.
Even matter vanishes into energy's rag, and energy is a motion of all naught. How shall the ideal's unsubstantial hues be painted stiff on earth's vermilion blur? A dream within a dream come doubly true? How shall the will o' the wisp become a star? The ideal is a melody of thy mind, a bright delirium of thy speech and thought, a strange wine of beauty lifting thee to false sight, a noble fiction of thy yearnings made. The human imperfection is must share its forms in nature, disappoint the heart, and never shall it find its heavenly shape, and never can it be fulfilled in time. O soul, misled by the splendor of thy thoughts, O earthly creature with thy dream of heaven, obey, resign, and still the earthly load. Accept the brief light that falls upon thy days. Take what thou canst of life's permitted joy, submitting to the ordeal of fate's scourge. Suffer what thou must of toil and grief and care. There shall approach silencing thy passionate heart, my long calm night of everlasting sleep, there into the hush from which thou canst retire.
Thank you. End of Canto 2. So at the end of the canto here, Sri Aurobindo returns to this, describing the ideal. Of course, all of these things are ideals that he's been speaking of, ideals of knowledge, wisdom, love, beauty, truth. He says, how shall these ideals be put into form, into reality here on earth? First, they are unsubstantial to begin with, and then you want them painted here in physical matter. How is that going to work? A dream within a dream come doubly true? How shall the will-o'-the-wisp become a star? I forget now, do anyone recall what this will-o'-the-wisp is? It's, I think it's just some kind of light, perhaps that comes, some kind of natural luminescence from some biological phenomena in the fields or something. Yeah. It seems that's what I recall, some kind of light that occurs over the fields, maybe even in England or something, in these moors. Yeah, I don't recall exactly. Shraddhavan spoke of these in one of our earlier iterations. Yeah, how does this, yeah. Right. So these things are just imaginations, deliriums of thy speech and thought. A strange wine of beauty lifting thee to false sight. A noble fiction of thy yearnings made. But thy human imperfection it must share. It will always be tainted by your human imperfections. You're being misled by the splendor of their thoughts. O earthly creature, with thy dream of heaven. Obey, resigned and still, the earthly law. Accept the reality of your life here on earth, its transience. Don't imagine these far-off ideals, these unsubstantial things. Look around you, see. Don't close your eyes to the realities of your life. Accept the brief light that falls upon thy days. Take what thou canst of life's permitted joy. Submitting to the ordeal of fate's scourge, suffer what thou must of toil and grief and care. Accept your life with all its sufferings. Don't turn away from it and imagine these heavens. of the ideal. In the end there shall approach, silencing thy passionate heart, my long, calm night of everlasting sleep. There into the hush from which thou camest, retire. Don't worry, I'll bring you peace and calm for all eternity. Leave behind this suffering life. So what'd you find?
Yeah, I found it. It's an atmospheric ghost ride that appears at night over bogs and swamps because of the methane and other gases that are rising.
Right. Okay, so that concludes our Canto 2. The debate will go on next time.
Then peals the calm inexorable voice. This is the word from which thy yearnings came.
Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.